insecurities, physical, emotional abuse, peer, sibling conflict, violence, gang involvement. Some of these very topics I have dealt with as well.
I think it's a lot of peer pressure, social media, substance abuse. I feel like the pandemic also played a huge role. I feel like the students are just so desensitized from a lot of things.
The students who come in here are communicative, they are reliable, dependable, they want to release, they're looking for assistance, looking for help.
It kind of just gives us a place to like talk if we need to and like relate to people close to us.
This is my home. If I was alone at this age, I would probably be cold. I'd be left on the street, probably stuck, froze like stone.
Let's go!
At this age, I'd be on my own.
Kill! Kill!
I am so proud of these kids that are coming to this program and saying, I like getting this help. I need this help. And we're saying, come on in, we're here to help you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call to order this August 27th, 2024 meeting of the Pierce County Council. The time is 3:02 p.m. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Campbell.
Here.
Councilmember Krueger.
Here.
Councilmember Denson. Here. Councilmember Herrera.
Here.
Councilmember Hitchin.
Here.
Councilmember Morell.
Here.
Councilmember Mello.
Here.
The results of, you have 7 members present.
We have all 7 members present and a quorum. That brings us to item number 3, which is our Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, our moment of silence, and our land acknowledgement. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag led by Councilmember Herrera, followed by a moment of silence dedicated to our men and women serving overseas, and then the land acknowledgement read by Councilmember Herrera. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We acknowledge that we are on the traditional homelands of Coast Salish tribes. Coast Salish people have lived on and stewarded these lands since time immemorial and continue to do so today. We recognize that this land acknowledgement is one small step towards true allyship, and we commit to the uplifting voices, experiences, and histories of the indigenous people of this land.
Thank you, Councilmember Herrera. Item number 4 is approval of our agenda. Are there any objections to approving today's agenda as presented? Seeing no objection, the agenda is approved. On today's council agenda, there will be multiple opportunities for public comment. So I just want to make sure everyone knows how to participate. On the consent agenda, you may provide comment on any final action item. This does not include items placed on the agenda simply for introduction or scheduling. On today's council agenda, there are 1 set of minutes for approval, 4 appointments for final hearing, 4 grants for approval, and 1 motion to approve a settlement. During sections 8 and 9 of the agenda, we will take public comment on each ordinance and resolution individually. There's just 1 ordinance on the agenda today. And finally, under community forum, there will be an opportunity to address the council on any topic that is not up for final action on today's agenda. For information on the rules for public participation, please review the bottom of page 1 of today's agenda. I want to make really clear just 2 of our important rules for public participation here at the County Council. One is that all comments must be germane to a published agenda item. And secondly, you must direct all comments to the chair. Again, you can find those at the bottom of page 1 of our agenda. That does bring us to section 5. We now have the consent agenda before us. Does any member wish to pull any item from the consent agenda? Vice Chair Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I move approval of the consent agenda, amending to move items C2C and C2B to section 8 of the agenda.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt the consent agenda with the exception of moving items C2C and C2B to section 7 of the agenda. 2 resolutions.
Sorry, I'm reading the paper in front of me. No, 7 is still messages.
Excuse me, section 8, resolutions.
Yes, section 8, resolutions.
Any member wish to remove any other items from the consent agenda? The motion in front of us is to adopt the consent agenda with the exception of items C2C and C2B. We typically pull off appointments when the individuals are present so we can hear from them. So that's the purpose of removing the item from the consent agenda so we can hear from the appointees. Okay, we're going to open up for a public hearing on all of the remaining items on the consent agenda. Final action items on the consent agenda. So everything except for C2C and C2B on the consent agenda. Does any member of the public wish to provide comment on the remaining items on the consent agenda? We'll start here in council chambers. Not seeing any. Oh, please. If you're here to speak to something on the consent agenda.
I'm sorry, that's different than the housing issue, which is an ordinance?
Yes. We'll come to the ordinance later in the meeting and everyone will have an opportunity to provide comment. Sorry for the confusion. Okay, not seeing anybody come to the podium to provide public comment on the consent agenda. Mr. Dominique, anybody in the Zoom room?
For anyone in the Zoom room, if you'd like to provide comment on anything, any final action on the consent agenda, please press the raise hand icon in Zoom or *9 on your telephone keypad. There are no hands at this time, Chair.
Seeing no hands, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on the consent agenda?
Councilmember Krueger.
Aye.
Councilmember Denson.
Aye.
Councilmember Herrera.
Aye.
Councilmember Hitchin.
Aye.
Councilmember Morel.
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell.
Aye.
Councilmember Mello.
Aye.
The result of the roll call vote is 7 ayes and 0 nays.
On a vote of 7 ayes and 0 nays, the consent agenda is adopted. We're at Section 6, messages from the executive and other county elected officials. There are a few. We'll read them briefly into the record. First, there was a message from the executive transmitting the following ordinance, which was approved and signed on August 12th, 2024. It included an ordinance 2024-528. This was an ordinance of the Pierce County Council amending the International Fire Code in the county's code. Secondly, there was a message from the executive transmitting the following ordinances, which were approved and signed on August 13th, 2024. They include ordinance 2024-531, an ordinance of the County Council approving the transfer of control of YCOM networks to Consolidated Communications of Washington, and establishing conditions for acceptance of that franchise agreement. He also signed ordinance 2024-532, an ordinance of the Pierce County Council related to the operation and expansion of the Pierce County water utility. Third, there was a message from the executive transmitting the following ordinance approved and signed on August 14th, 2024. That being ordinance 2024-542, an ordinance of the County Council ratifying the collective bargaining agreement reached with Teamsters Local Union 117, the Journal Unit, and the Pierce County Sheriff Unit. And finally, there is a message from the executive transmitting the following ordinance, which was vetoed on August 26, 2024. That was ordinance 2024-540S. This was an ordinance of the Pierce County Council adopting interim amendments to the Pierce County Code related to emergency shelter for unsheltered residents of Pierce County and declaring an imminent threat to public health or safety. That was vetoed. That brings us to Section 7, proclamations, recognitions, awards, and presentations. Today, the Council proclaims August 31, 2024 as Overdose Awareness Day in Pierce County. I'd like to invite Chantel Harmon-Reed, Director of our Tacoma Pierce County Health Department, to the podium as Councilmember Hitchin reads this proclamation into the record. Councilmember Hitchin.
Thank you, Chair. A proclamation of the Pierce County Council proclaiming August 31, 2024 as Overdose Awareness Day in Pierce County, Washington. Whereas the human toll of the opioid epidemic, which has been affecting the nation since the 1990s, has been particularly severe in Pierce County and the greater Puget Sound region. The U.S. opioid crisis began with an increase in deaths from prescription opioids, Wave 1, in the early 2000s, and heroin, Wave 2, in 2010, Around 2013, an increase in fentanyl overdoses signaled the third wave, and the fourth and current wave began in 2015 with a defining characteristic of mixing fentanyl and stimulants, resulting in increased overdoses. And whereas more than 800 Pierce County residents lost their lives to drug overdoses, including stimulants, between January 2021 and June 2023. Opioid-related overdose is the #1 cause of accidental death in Pierce County among adults over 18 years old, outnumbering motor vehicle collisions and firearms deaths. And nearly all opioid-related overdoses among Pierce County residents over 65 years old are caused by therapeutic error in the home. And whereas opioid-related overdose deaths in Washington and Pierce County continue to grow most quickly amongst people ages 18 to 24. And whereas in 2017, the Pierce County Council declared that Pierce County was in an opioid crisis, and today communities across the county continue to see an opioid misuse and overdoses. And whereas in June 2023, the Pierce County Council adopted Resolution R 2023-91, which authorized the Pierce County Executive to enter into an interlocal agreement with the cities of Auburn, Bonnie Lake, Edgewood, Fife, Gig Harbor, Lakewood, Puyallup, Sumner, Tacoma, and University Place to create the Pierce County Opioid Abatement Council, or OAC. The OAC ensures that the $48 million that the Pierce County region will receive from various opioid settlements over the next 17 years is invested to have substantial impact on addressing the opioid epidemic and aiding in recovery efforts. And whereas these settlements result from opioid manufacturers knowingly marketing opioids as non-addictive ways of managing chronic pain, leading people to become unknowingly addicted and develop opioid use disorder. And whereas the OAC will ensure the funds are spent according to the settlement's approved uses, including treatment programs for addiction recovery and educational programs about the harms of opioid abuse. And whereas the Pierce County Council appropriated $210,000 in the 2024-2025 biennial budget to the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department's MedFirst program, pilot program, a program designed to eliminate the obstacles that wait times or extensive onboarding process can present to people trying to access medications for opioid use disorder. And for many people with opioid use disorder, medication is the best path to recovery. And whereas the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department-led Opioid Task Force is hosting a community event on Thursday, September 5, from 5 to 7 p.m. at Tolson Plaza to remember, educate, act, and learn, or get real, about overdose. And whereas August 31, 2024 is recognized internationally as Overdose Awareness Day to help reduce the stigma of drug-related deaths and remember the people who have died because of substance poisoning. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed on this 27th day of August 2024 by the Pierce County Council that August 31, 2024 is Overdose Awareness Day in Pierce County, Washington, and community members are encouraged to further educate themselves on the signs of overdose, the best response practices, local services and treatment options, and refer people with substance use disorder to additional services by visiting our own health department at tpchd.org or the Washington State 211 organization at wa.211.org.
Give them a round of applause. Ms. Harmon-Reed, welcome. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Chair Mello. Of course, I am Chantel Reed. I am the Director of Public Health for Tacoma Pierce County Health Department. I am here on behalf of the Pierce County Opioid Task Force to receive this proclamation. I want to thank you for recognizing Overdose Awareness Day. Opioid epidemic is not unique to Pierce County. I'm struggling with this because I have a member of my own family that succumbed to an overdose. Her name was Brittany Granderson. I wanted to say her name today because it resonates for me. Every day that I work with the staff and my coworkers and you, I appreciate every single one of you because I see you here standing with your purple on today in recognition of overdose awareness. I thought about my purple. I had my pen. I left the office and didn't put it on, but I have my black on because black is really a poignant reminder of losing Brittany on that day in November in 2016. It was just disbelief. We had support systems, we had all those things and a whole bunch of other stuff. And it was a cry for help. Like most people who suffer with opioids use disorder. It is a state of despair. It is a state of help. It is a state of support. And we needed support. There's other people that we know in Pierce County. I'm looking at Missy. She struggled with her son. She had sought help, and she ultimately lost her son. She had been trying to get him support for his addiction for many years. He perished in a house fire. The match that he used in order to support his addiction ultimately was his demise. It is a point of reminder for me, and I hope that it is one for everyone here, that this is a real thing, and it is not something that is dedicated to one person or one type of people. It affects all of us if it affects one of us. We hear about the dangers of opioids and fentanyl. We know how addictive these drugs are and how deadly they can be. But we don't hear how much difficult it can be sometimes for people who want to stop using these drugs. For us, it is truly important for us to make a difference and turn this crisis around in our communities. We need to break down all the barriers that people face. We work every single day. Like Councilmember Hitchen mentioned, the event that is going to be September 5th at Tolson Plaza. We are working with Councilmember Denson on another event in October, 2 of those events. We are so happy to support, because the more we raise awareness, the more we provide education, and the more we provide resources, the more we can stop, talking about some of these stories that I'm talking about today. It's going to take all of us to fight together, and we can address opioid use disorder and all of those that are affected. It is not just the person that is in that crisis. It is everyone that is around them that is affected by that. Again, thank you for acknowledging this day, because, again, it is not just the person that's impacted by it. It is everyone around it. We hope that you'll come out and support and be able to get the resources that you need, because we're going to be available. We're going to make sure that you have everything that you need to support navigating through this crisis, whether it's Narcan, resources, panels, information, whatever you need to navigate through. Thank you so much for acknowledging this, and thank you so much for your support as we address this in our community.
Thank you, Director Harmon Reed. Are there remarks by my fellow council members? We'll begin with Councilmember Herrera.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councilmember Hitchen, for bringing this up. This is really important. Opioid Awareness Day. You raised a few of them. It raises awareness to the public. Some people don't even know what an overdose looks like until they find their kid in their bed, or they're just sleeping or something like that. This brings those tough conversations up. It also helps us think about policies as we move forward, treatment, prevention, all those things. We're talking about it. It also helps us remember the lost.
Yes.
And an opportunity to remember and actually honor those who lost their lives due to addiction, because that brings the human toll of addiction. Nobody's immune to it. Doesn't matter what color your skin is, what demographic, exactly. Veteran, laborer. I mean, I've known veterans who got hurt in their service or got wounded in combat and were prescribed medication and then went down that dirty ditch. So this is good to talk about it today. It brings the human side of it. It brings it brings the conversation forward. So thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Hitchen.
Thank you, Chair. Director Reed, thank you for your comments and sharing your personal story. And I'm sorry that you had a personal story to share, but the reality is almost everybody does have a story to share about this because of how massive this is. So appreciate that we really are continuing to think about ways that we can support those that are trying to just help their family members, their friends, their partners, or themselves find a pathway that works. We had a phenomenal Health and Human Services Committee where Dr. Khan had one of our providers in the community talked about what addiction was, and we're going to try and get the clip of that out because he put it so succinctly. But I want to acknowledge one. If you are listening to this or you know someone who just wants to learn in a really easy way, the health department runs a website called fentanylfacts.org. It's got resources for parents who are trying to figure out, how do I talk to I don't think I need to talk to my 10-year-old, but maybe you do need to talk about your 10-year-old about what this can look like and what to be aware of and what you need to be aware of within your own home. If you think like something's not quite right with someone, is there something going on? Like they have just this wealth of resources on there that really kind of put it in layman terms, and it could be something for your young people to look at or you as an adult to look at. So please take a few minutes sometime in the next week or so and educate yourself, especially if you've got kids going off to school in the next couple weeks, well, probably the next week or so. Or today for some of our colleagues in the chambers today. So just remember it can come out of nowhere. It can touch many, many, many people in different ways, and it has a huge impact. So please be aware. The be aware, take care is the slogan on there, and it's something to be aware of. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments? Well, Director Harmon-Reed, we're really grateful that your team at the Health Department continues to lead the opioid task force. And one of the many things we know that you've prioritized at the opioid task force is people with lived experience.
Yes.
We know you really center the lives of people with lived experience. Many of us have been to the opioid task. The task force is an ongoing effort that meets weekly. Many of your committees meet weekly, and then you have a big summit that many of us get to come to and get updates about what the task force is working on all year long to move forward on solutions. So that's where I get the evidence that you take lived experience really seriously. You've really centered them in the last few summits that you've hosted. So thank you for doing that. We can only learn from experts, and in this case, experts who have been personally afflicted by the fentanyl crisis or opioid abuse crisis and opioid disorder. So thank you for doing that. One of the things this council will be considering really seriously later on in this very meeting is an investment in medically assisted treatment for those suffering from opioid use disorder. We've heard from the years of work from the opioid task force, from experts in public health, physicians, people with lived experience, others. We have heard, and it's been in all the reports and studies your team has done for years now, and we think it's time to act. For years now, we've been told that transportation is a major barrier to get people to medically assisted treatment. Not everybody can come down to downtown Tacoma to get services, to get treatment. We have to go to others, and transportation is a real barrier. So in the council's budget that we're considering is a really serious investment of $2 million to stand up 2 new mobile medically assisted treatment units for opioid use disorder, where we can go to communities, unserved and underserved areas of Pierce County, and not expecting everybody to come to downtown Tacoma for service. Those kinds of, that's what we've heard from the experts, and we're just responding. That's not our idea. Those are the experts' ideas. I see you wanting to say something.
No, I was just going to say, in a county as vast as Pierce County, we need to go to where the people are. It is honestly just not feasible for people to traverse across the county. I recently held a listening session in Gig Harbor, and I've gone out to Bonnie Lake, and I've gone just across the county just in general. If we're going to be serious about taking care of the needs of the people, we need to go to where they are. So in order to be able to do that, we need funding in order to support them. I'm showing up. We're making sure that we have resources, but we need support in order to be able to do that, and we need resources in order to be able to do that. Sometimes it's feasible, sometimes it's not. If you are in a state of, I have made the decision that I want recovery, then you have to meet people where they are. And the resources in order to be able to do that is very necessary. Any support that you can lend to us in order to be able to do that is greatly, greatly appreciated. Just because traversing one side of the county to the next, I mean, we do that in our cars, and you know sometimes what a barrier that can be. So you imagine someone that doesn't have the cars, the resources. I mean, could you imagine what rideshare service might cost for someone to be able to do that? And that's a barrier. That's going to inhibit them from getting the services that they need. So I really appreciate you all supporting that measure.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes us less safe when people don't have the ability
Yes.
to get the treatment. So we're about making this
Thank
community
you.
safer. So that's something that is in alignment with what we're talking about just now that
Thank you.
we're going to take up in just a few moments. Again, thank you for centering people with lived experience. Thank you for working with us to deliver real solutions. And thank you for what you really highlighted today, which is working on destigmatizing the disorder. That's really huge for folks wanting to say yes to help.
Thank you.
Could we invite you up here to take a photo with us?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Overdose Awareness Day is a really somber and serious effort, but one very worth lifting up and bringing attention to. Thank you, Madam Director, for being with us. Next, the Council proclaims September 2024 as National Preparedness Month in Pierce County. I'd like to invite our recipients to the podium as Councilmember Cruver reads the proclamation into the record. And we're really pleased to have Jody Ferguson, our Director of the Department of Emergency Management, Rachel Anderson, Vice Chair of the Citizen Corps Council of Pierce County, Jim Braden, Chair and Response Commander for the Fox Island Emergency Preparedness Group, and Doug Nelson, member of the Fox Island Emergency Preparedness Group. If any of those folks are here in chambers, we invite you to be with Director Ferguson. And we know we have a couple of members on Zoom, so thank you. We have your cameras on. Thank you for being with us virtually. We know that's the more convenient way for many folks to participate. With that, Councilmember Cruver, to read this into the record.
Thank you, Chair. A proclamation of the Pierce County Council proclaiming September 2024 as National Preparedness Month in Pierce County, Washington. Whereas the safety and well-being of Pierce County residents is of the utmost importance, and whereas emergencies can occur at any time, often without warning, and may result from natural disasters such as earthquakes, floods, wildfires, and severe storms, as well as from human-caused incidents and health-related emergencies such as pandemics, and whereas preparing for emergencies can significantly reduce the loss of life and property and help the community recover more quickly. And whereas the county's nationally recognized Pierce County Department of Emergency management staff and volunteers work diligently to help prepare communities across the county for hazards that could impact their neighborhoods, the county, Washington State, and the nation. And whereas the Department of Emergency Management works closely with organizations and neighborhood groups in Pierce County to help maintain readiness, including the community emergency response teams with Tacoma, West Pierce Fire, and South Pierce Fire and Rescues, the Citizen Corps Council of Pierce County, Peninsula Emergency Preparedness Coalition, the Medical Reserve Corps, Pierce County Search and Rescue, and many more community-based groups also play a significant role in keeping the county prepared. And whereas preparing includes plotting an evacuation route from home and work, knowing how neighbors will help each other during an emergency, and knowing how to get information from trusted sources, including the Pierce County Department of Emergency Management and local and fire and police agencies. And whereas supplies may be limited or inaccessible during a disaster, so each household needs to make an emergency kit to survive for at least 2 weeks without help. The Pierce County Department of Emergency Management has tips to create a kit at piercecountywad.gov/build-a-kit, including how to find items at home, work, and in the car that can go into an emergency kit. And whereas when disasters do strike, the Pierce County Department of Emergency Management is ready to provide support, activate and manage Tacoma Pierce County Emergency Operations Center, support coordination of multi-agency response to emergency incidents, provide alert, warning, and emergency public information, and support recovery efforts. And whereas every community member is encouraged to register for PC Alert at piercecountywad.gov/alert, a free service used in an emergency to inform the public with accurate information, allowing community members to respond accordingly. And whereas the Pierce County Council is committed to supporting emergency preparedness efforts, providing resources, and promoting education and awareness to ensure that all community members have the tools and knowledge necessary to protect themselves and their families. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed on this 27th day of August 2024 by the Pierce County Council that September 2024 is National Preparedness Month in Pierce County, Washington, and community members are encouraged to sign up for PC Alert, take the time to understand hazards, evaluate readiness, create or update an emergency preparedness kit, and prepared plans, and begin developing or updating their 2 weeks ready supply kit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. Director Ferguson.
I was going to let the real stars of the show go first. So.
We are, I'm here representing the Citizen Corps Council of Pierce County, and I have a cheat sheet, so I'm going to read from my cheat sheet here. Basically, we are here to provide strategic space for citizens to be able to engage and support their community, and through training, through education, through volunteer opportunities, individuals can combine their skills to strengthen the community and build safety awareness, be a little bit more resilient, more unified, and more flexible in taking direction so that we can be a support to our Pierce County Department of Emergency Management. And some of the things that we've done so far this year is that we have supported the Pierce County Disaster Assistance Council, and myself am part of that Disaster Assistance Council. And we've established a youth group because we recognize that the youth have no representation on the Pierce County Emergency or the Pierce County Citizen Corps Council, and that's a big demographic. In addition to that, it allows us to be able to disseminate through them because they're a phenomenal resource being able to reach that demographic. And so we share training opportunities that are coming up, that are open to the public, and they're able to disseminate that out to their peers and any organizations that they belong to, and that's just been wonderful. They're natural marketers. They have come into this world as natural marketers. We also have been instrumental in connecting the Washington State CERT coordinator to teaching with the youth on JBLM, and they've been trying for years to get that to happen. And so just because of the working relationships that we have, we've been able to get that started and established, and that's been wonderful. Wonderful for them, wonderful for Washington State. In addition to that, we provide basic CERT trainings and skill refresher classes. So that is specifically to supplement any missed classes that others through designated jurisdiction CERT response teams. If those students have come through and missed classes, we're able to supplement a class so that they can complete those and be available and ready whenever the county needs them. Please.
Thank you so much. Jody Ferguson, Director of Pierce County Emergency Management. And the reason I wanted her to go first is what it's all about. And it's not Citizen Corps or Pepsi or Fox Island supporting Pierce County Emergency Management. We're working right alongside each other. And if anything, it's reversed. It's how can my department support these wonderful volunteers, community members who are serving in their own neighborhoods. There's nothing more important than that. And it's been my philosophy that emergency preparedness, it's a partnership between government and the people government serve. And the only way we truly reach that readiness and that resilience, that's such a perfect word, is through that partnership. Otherwise, it will not be successful. So the more and more all of these groups are simply doing, you can't go to an awards banquet in Pierce County without seeing one of these groups being recognized, and that is fantastic. How blessed are we to have that in our community? It's been busy. Luckily, knock on wood, everything's calm today. So that is wonderful. I say every month is Preparedness Month in my world, but we greatly appreciate you designating September officially as such. Finishing up with the summer, we've had lots of events this summer. It's been very, very busy. Washington State Fair is coming up. I'm sure everyone watching will see us there. We've held several kind of back-to-school events in the Key Peninsula School District, Franklin Pierce School District, White River School District. So we're really loving getting back involved with our schools. Our community events, most of our fire districts have had open houses. We've been out to East Pierce Fire and Rescue, out to Ashford. We have Touch a Truck events coming up, so those are always fun to participate in. On September 7th, Councilmember Hitchen, we're going out to Anderson Island to do disaster first aid. So we're inviting you to that. And Councilmember Krueger has attended to disaster first aid and we held in Lacamas. So our goal is to get all the council members trained up in disaster first aid. So that's coming up. And then on September 28th, we're having a community open house at our facility. And we're going to do a live fire safety burn. We're going to have the sandbagger out there and we're going to practice filling sandbags. We're going to have our wonderful K-9 search teams do some demonstrations. So just a lot of great information on emergency preparedness, but a lot of the demonstrations of some of the things we provide to the community will be there. And we just want all of you and all of the people watching at home to come. So thank you so very much for continuing to support emergency management and emergency preparedness as a whole.
Thank you, Director Ferguson. We have two other individuals online. James and Doug, would you like to share anything? You don't have to, but thank you for making the time to be here. Would you like to add anything, Doug or James?
Go ahead, Jim. Here we go. This is Jim. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Yeah, you have on your screen there Jim Braden and Doug Nelson. We're co-founders of Fox Island Emergency Preparedness, FIEP. You might see those initials around from time to time. First off, thank you for Council Member Robin Denson for making us aware of this particular thing. It's a wonderful effort you're putting forward. It's terrific. We also want to say thank you greatly to Pierce County's Department of Emergency Management as far as giving us the tools and the support. We've been at this for 10 years, 2014 until today, and it's been a ton of work. Are we done? And the answer is no. There's a lot to learn and a lot to be improved upon. And one of the main concerns that we have is simply public awareness of the importance of being prepared as a family and prepared as a neighborhood to deal with, to the best degree you can, a major emergency. And an effort like what you're doing here with September being, a designated month for being aware of that is going to help that very important thing, having the public be aware of, being basically, we call it yo-yo. In a major emergency, yo-yo means you're on your own. And so what you've done to prepare as a family and what you've done to prepare as a community or a neighborhood can be critical in terms of your survival, actually. And Citizens Corps, of which Doug here is a board member of that organization, are doing wonderful work. Having them incorporated into what you folks are doing at the county level is really appreciated. It's a step in the right direction. Bringing youth involved is a wonderful thing. That's part of our public, and they have the energy, and as they become aware of the importance of taking action and getting things improved upon, why that's basically a step in the right direction. And so, again, we want to say thank you. We're recognized as one of the leading organizations of our type. We speak to a lot of communities to get them kicked off and working in this direction. And if it weren't for the county's support, it wouldn't even happen. So thanks to the county for supporting this and getting this very important topic in front of the public. And hopefully, when something serious happens, the county will be helped by individuals, a very important element. Thank you. Doug, you have anything you want to add on to that?
No, actually, I think you pretty much said. Just big thanks to Pierce County Emergency Management, all the help that they've given us over the years.
Thank you all.
Thank you both for what you do. Ms. Anderson, before I open it up for remarks by council members, can you share how community members, if they wish to become active with the Citizen Corps Council of Pierce County, how they might be able to do so?
Yes, just Google us, look us up. We actually have a section in the Pierce County Emergency Management website, but you can find a direct link by just Googling Pierce County Citizen Corps Council, and that should take you right to us. We would love to have everybody that is interested engaged, because really what makes Citizen Corps work is the collective talent, the backgrounds. It's so diverse, and we have an opportunity to bring that diversity of experience, background, professional insights and skills onto that council, and we're able to expand through each one of those points of contact and draw more resources, human resources that is just available to help and support. And we take requests, really is what we exist for. We take requests. What is your need?
Thank you.
And then we'll see what we can do.
Thank you. Google's our friend here to find the Citizen Corps Council of Pierce County and become active with their membership, doing important work of training our community members to be ready when that disaster strikes. Remarks by council members. Councilmember Denson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I really want to thank Department of Emergency Management and all of the citizen groups. Everything that you've said is so true. We have the potential for just about every different kind of emergency here in the Pacific Northwest. It was mentioned: floods, wildfires, volcanoes, earthquakes. It's a matter of when, not if, we're going to get hit by the Cascadia subduction zone. And for those of us, really, it's going to be a major issue for everyone in the county. I'm very fortunate to have leaders in District 7, on Fox Island, on the Key Peninsula, on the Gig Harbor Peninsula, who understand that because we are separated from urban Tacoma by one, maybe two, maybe three bridges, in some people's cases, it's going to be a while. Yo-yo is real out there, but it's really real for everyone here in Pierce County. And the more rural you get, the longer it's probably going to take for the first responders, as well as food and water and all of that to get to us. So DEM is providing amazing leadership, and it takes the community groups, the neighborhood groups collaborating together. I really want to thank Ms. Anderson. I love the idea of the youth council, the youth group, because what I hear from a lot of the groups that I interact with out in District 7 is we have a lot of amazing people, but they're not our youngest generation, and we need the youngest generation to be learning and to be engaged in this. My son is very, very engaged. He's got his ham radio license. He's a volunteer for FEMA. So it's so awesome that you are really developing those skills, whether it's through CERT or disaster first aid. I mean, these are going to be the folks that are going to be able to help their neighbors. So I'm really, really thankful for that. I just want to do one shout out to DEM. In our budget last year, if y'all remember, we put in a proviso for DEM to really do an assessment of the Key Peninsula area, because again, it's a peninsula. If there's a wildfire, there's areas that could be completely cut off, and they're working with the health department. I know Director Chantel Harmon Reed was talking to the Key Peninsula community just the other day. She has a lot of experience in disasters coming from Nolens. So she has had a lot to add to this conversation, and our fire departments as well are engaged in that work. And it's all about keeping people safe, keeping people alive, having a plan, because things are going to happen. So y'all are definitely the right people to be in charge, and we're really grateful to you. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Herrera.
Thank you, Chair, and Councilmember Denson. You said everything that needs to be said, but it's great. But you hit it on the nail. But you know, just to put a little explanation point how important this is. Couple months or about a month ago, I talked to a friend of mine who was a veteran in Maui. And they were involved with what happened there with the devastating fires and the realities of what happens on the ground, and where yo-yo is really true. And local government may take some time, state government and federal government may take some time, and it's that time in between which is so important of getting people help those critical time. In their opinion, boots on the ground, they didn't feel that they were very prepared, but they had to do things quickly and come up and find the people, the diverse people with the talents to do A, B, or C. But it was, and they're still dealing with it. It's been a year now, I think, since August 2023. So those are reminders from New Orleans, the disasters down there that lasted years, months, and Pierce County. You're talking about what we're doing here, and getting the grassroots is the most important part of this. So, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Cruver.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to share a little of my experience. By the way, thank you for showing up in Roy. It was a great meeting, and you all had information for folks there. But I must have been at an Eatonville meeting of some sort, and there was the presentation from the chaplain on the South Pierce Fire and Rescue Cert, and so I signed up to take the first class. I mean, so you do the fire extinguisher. I didn't have the grip strength. I had to put the thing on the ground in order to get it to, make that thing work. And so it's very enlightening on how much I didn't know. And so it's one of those things where you almost feel afraid to learn these things, because then something's going to happen. And so if you don't learn it, then nothing's going to happen. But I was on 304th, and here's this big plume of dirt or whatnot. I thought there must have been an excavator or something. And here was a guy who had run his van into the rail guard. And there was some gal standing there, and I'm like, where did she come from? She was behind me pulling a horse trailer. And I felt very grateful and blessed. She was trained, and she knew what to do. And I'm like, I should know those things. I've had the training. But if you don't keep using it, you lose it. And it was very enlightening on the need to have that. And one of the other things that was good, I had gotten an email from, or I sent out an email and attended the one at Lacamas. And one of the gentlemen there had said, he says, because of the email, he went, got some training. And he had emailed later and had said how grateful he was because his wife had an emergency and he had training in order to help her. And yeah, I know. And just, Rachel, you are so organized. I don't know how you do all of the things that you do. If you need to find out something, you call Rachel Anderson. She knows all this. And I'll just do on September 21 and 28 in Eatonville, there is the major training, a lot of the emergency. It will have emotional things. It will have medical and all the different things. And the last one I went to, I want to say, when you're a yard sale-aholic, you come home with things. And I mean, all of this gauze. And although it may not be sterile, but, if you're driving somewhere and someone has a gash and it needs to be stuffed, you don't care, but, It didn't cost me anything. And the other thing I learned was, tube socks. How beneficial just that these can be using as a tourniquet or as you have to do a sling. And there were several things named on that, and that's why I need a refresher, which leads me to, the 21st and the 28th will be the disaster preparedness in Eatonville. It's in the rural part, northern part, not far from Northwest Trek. So if anyone is interested, let me know. Thank you so much for what you do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Coover. And thanks for sharing some of the tips you've already learned.
I have more. I took more out of the bag.
Thank you. Any other remarks? Well, in closing, thank you, Director Ferguson, thank you for how seriously you take preparedness and how seriously you take supporting our citizen groups around the county. Thank you for your volunteer leadership. There's no way in anyone's imagination we could ever afford the time and expertise to be ready, right? To be prepared and to be ready, and your activations. It's just not humanly possible to afford. Hence, you volunteer. So thank you. We're grateful that you volunteer, but you know that we could never be prepared without you. So thank you so much. We'd encourage you to please, and we'd invite you to come up here and get the proclamation.
May I invite my youth?
Of course you can.
To come?
We're going to put you in the middle. This one's for you. Welcome. Director Ferguson. Can you fit us, Brian?
I believe so. Yep, I can. One, two, three. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to get one last one here. I'm going to get this microphone out of the way. Thank you.
Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much. Good job.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah, absolutely. Nice to meet you. Thanks for being here. Nice to meet you.
Going back to school here.
Okay. Let's move. We are at resolutions. We have 2 appointment resolutions we pulled off the agenda so we can meet these appointees. We have Resolution 2024-200. Councilmember Denson for a motion, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Sorry, let me turn the page. I would like to move Resolution R 2024-200.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2024-200. Madam Clerk, please read the title.
Proposal number R 2024-200, a resolution of the Pierce County Council confirming the appointment of 1 new member to the Pierce County Housing Authority Board of Commissioners.
Thank you. And this 1 new member is Scott Winship. Mr. Winship, thank you for being here. We would invite you to the podium, and we would like to give you a brief opportunity to introduce yourself and share why you wish to serve. We have the benefit of your written materials with your appointment from the executive. Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Basically, my appointment stems from you can't say no to Willie Stewart.
I've been there, done that.
Yeah, but I'm on the grants committee for our Rotary Club, and we were at Urban Grace doing a site visit, and he buttonholed me, and so that kind of got the wheels turning. But I have an interest and have had an interest in housing for quite some time, both as a board member of United Way for many years, and I was also on the Pierce County Community Investment Corporation, which is a weird sort of nonprofit that's within the confines of the county government somehow. And so I had the privilege of meeting with Jim Stretz, the executive director, earlier in the week, and I was really impressed with him and some of the steps he's taken to kind of address some of the needs of that organization. And so I have my work cut out for me in terms of just learning about the facilities that they have, the programs that they have, and the acronyms that they use. So I'm looking forward to it, and appreciate the fact that just ordinary Joes can do this sort of thing.
Thank you, Mr. Winship. We're grateful for your willingness to serve. Are there any questions for Mr. Winship before we open up for a public hearing? I'm not seeing any. Thank you. Many of us do know you and your extreme competence and leadership and history, serving in many different capacities. Thank you.
Thanks.
This is a public hearing on the appointment of Scott Winship to the Pierce County Housing Authority Board of Commissioners. Any member of the public wish to provide comment? We'll invite you to the podium, starting here in council chambers. Anyone in council chambers wishing to provide comment on this appointment? Not seeing any. Mr. Dominique, anybody in the Zoom room?
For any member of the public that would like to provide comment on proposal number R 2024-200, please press the raise hand icon in Zoom or *9 on your telephone keypad. And we have one hand at this time. Jim Stretz, please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
This is Jim Stretz, the Executive Director of the Pierce County Housing Authority, and I'm sorry I can't be there today. I'm at a software meeting, and as you know, software runs everything anymore. We're really excited to have this new member. His background will really complement our board, and we know that it's going to take some of his personal time, and we appreciate that he's willing to spend his time and his very valuable background knowledge. So thank you very much to the council, and thank you very much to our new member. Thank you.
Yes, I did receive all 284 pages of the materials for tomorrow's meeting.
Short notice, I know.
Thank you, Mr. Stretz.
You're welcome.
That's all the hands at this time, Chair.
With no further hands, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the council. Are there final remarks by council members? Councilmember Denson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to thank Mr. Winship for agreeing to serving on the Pierce County Housing Authority. This is such an important organization. I know that you know the council is really working so hard on affordable housing and permanent affordable housing, and I know the Housing Authority is engaged in a number of different big changes and initiatives, and I so admire their work. I've met with Mr. Stretz a couple of times and his staff, and they're so dedicated and engaged. But it is so important to have leadership of a board of people that really care about the issue and then have the background, such as you do, to be able to move this organization forward and to help our residents. So thank you so much for stepping forward.
Thank you, Councilmember Denson. I wholly concur. You are eminently qualified, and I was very excited to see this appointment come before the county councils. Thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you, Chairman Mel.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on Resolution 2024-200?
Councilmember Denson.
Aye.
Councilmember Herrera.
Aye.
Councilmember Hitchin.
Aye.
Councilmember Morrell.
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell.
Aye.
Councilmember Krueger.
Aye.
Councilmember Mello.
Aye.
The results of the roll call vote is 7 ayes and 0 nays.
On a vote of 7 ayes and 0 nays, the resolution is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to the other resolution that we pulled off the consent agenda. We have Resolution 2024-201 before us. Councilmember Herrera for a motion, please. 2024-201.
Chair, I move 2024-201 for approval.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2024-201. Madam Clerk, please read the title.
Proposal number R 2024-201, a resolution of the Pierce County Council confirming the appointment of 2 new members and reappointment of 3 existing members to the Board of Directors of the Economic Development Corporation of Pierce County.
Thank you. Are any of these members here in council chambers? Any of these appointees here in person in council chambers? Mr. Dominique, do we have any of them? I see Becky Newton in the Zoom room. Becky, we would invite you to briefly introduce yourself and share why you wish to serve.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So I am very happy to serve on the council. It's my pleasure. I am the Economic Development Manager here for the City of Lakewood. I've been with the city since October of 2011, and I've also been working in the economic development field for about 20 years total, having previously come from the Kitsap Economic Development Alliance. And it's really my passion for community and economic development, and really happy to serve and help the county. We're focused on regional recruitment, retention of businesses, and just happy to be able to provide a service in for the council and offering various financing opportunities for clients. And just really have really enjoyed the partnership, particularly with Pierce County and all of the Pierce cities throughout the region. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and it is certainly my pleasure to be here and offer my service to for the Pierce County Council. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Dominique, are there any other appointees in the Zoom room?
No, sir. No, Chair, there is not.
Thank you. We do have the benefit of the written application materials that were sent to us by the executive for all of these appointees. Do any council members have any questions before we open up for a public hearing? Not seeing any. This is a public hearing on these appointments to the Economic Development Corporation of Pierce County. Any member of the public here in council chambers wish to provide comment on these appointments? Not seeing anybody in chambers. Mr. Dominique, anybody in the Zoom room?
For any member of the public in the Zoom room that'd like to provide a comment on proposal number R 2024-201, please press the raise hand icon in Zoom or *9 on your telephone keypad. There are no hands at this time, Chair.
With no hands, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the council. Are there final remarks by council members? Councilmember Hitchin.
Thank you, Chair. Becky, thank you for introducing yourself and hanging with us for a while we went through some really important business, but just always want to acknowledge and thank anyone from District 6 that's going to help support the work of the county, and appreciate you being a voice for Lakewood. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Well, thank you to all of you for your expertise and what you're going to do to help us move our economic development plans forward. Thank you for the generosity of your time and expertise. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on Resolution 2024-201?
Councilmember Herrera.
Aye.
Councilmember Hitchin.
Aye.
Councilmember Morell.
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell.
Aye.
Councilmember Krueger.
Aye.
Councilmember Denson.
Aye.
Councilmember Mello.
Aye.
The results of the roll call vote is 7 ayes and 0 nays.
On a vote of 7 ayes and 0 nays, the resolution is adopted. We're at Section 9 of our agenda, ordinances. We have ordinance 2024-543S2 before us. Vice Chair Campbell for a motion, please.
Thank you, Chair. I move proposal number O 2024-543S2.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2024-543S2. Madam Clerk, please read the title.
Proposal number O 2024-543S2, An ordinance of the Pierce County Council amending ordinance number 2023-44S2, the biennial budget of Pierce County for fiscal years 2024 and 2025.
Thank you. Mr. Boki to brief the council.
Thank you, Chair Mello, Paul Boki, council staff. This supplemental budget is the first supplemental budget of the biennium. It was received from the executive and has been amended twice, one time in the committee of the whole to change the title, which allows the council to broaden the scope of the budget ordinance, and the other time, the last time at the committee of the whole on August 21st, it was amended again. So if I may, if you'd like me to, I can go through the items. As it was presented from the executive, it was solely dealing with the American Rescue Plan Act dollars. It was, and that was all. The council did a number of other things, and so I'll just mainly go through Exhibit A, but outside of Exhibit A, in the county council, there was an insertion in the county council, and there's a proviso in the county council budget in this biennium, and there's a proviso that has a date in there of reporting, and that date is being changed from September 30th, 2024 to February 1st, 2025. And after that, into the American Rescue Plan Act, there's a reallocation of $220,000 in projected under expenditures for the Small Business Strengthening and Security Grant Program to the Pierce County Community Navigator Program. Reallocate $140,000 in projected under expenditures for the Juvenile Court Detention Incentive Program to the Juvenile Court's Youth Diversion Programs. Designated up to, and this is a change, $2.5 million in interest earned on American Rescue Plan Act to support the projects at the highest risk of not meeting the obligation deadline of December 31st, 2024. The projects and amounts are as follows, and that is for the temporary non-congregate micro-shelter communities, $2.5 million, and we'll speak to that in just a minute. Housing and Related Services Services Tax Fund transferred $3,212,622 to the Housing and Homeless Fund. So these are outside of ARPA. This is a special revenue fund. So you'll be transferring $3,212,622 to the Housing and Homeless Fund. The Housing and Related Services Tax Fund would be appropriate $1,865,000 of funds to the Tacoma Housing Authority Aviva Crossing Affordable Housing Project. These funds will supplement American Rescue Plan Act funds to this project to help defray the increased costs of the project. Now, this was an item that was included in ARPA. There's already a substantial sum of money in ARPA that's already going to this project. And I think the council has been briefed on the request for additional dollars. The additional dollars in the exec's budget were going to be provided out of ARPA. Decision was made by the council to take those out of the Housing and Related Services Tax Fund, which we often call the Maureen Howard money. The Housing and Homeless Fund then gets the transfer from the Housing and Related Services Tax Fund and increases its budget by $3,212,622. And this is to be used to further fund the 2024-2025 homeless housing programs, projects for permanent supportive housing services. And there is a proviso in the budget included in this additional sum that it gives a lot more detail as to where the council would like these funds to go. And there's also an increase in the Parks Impact Fee Fund of $472,000 to provide capital funding to the Peninsula Metropolitan Park District. And that is something that was planned to occur in the last biennium, the 22-23 biennium, and it did not. And so this is putting that money back in so that transaction can occur. So, and then there's a change. There was a Section 18. And so the way our budget's constructed is in sections. And Section 18, the executive put some language in. The council change that language a bit, that all funds in the COVID-19 American Rescue Plan Fund deemed by the Finance Department to be in danger of not being obligated by December 31st, 2024, and are to be transferred to the rental and utility assistance for individuals in Pierce County at risk of being evicted. The Finance Department shall not exercise this transfer authority without the approval of the County Council. Approval by the County Council shall occur by motion or resolution. And so that was some different language. And that was given a do pass recommendation as substituted at the Committee of the Whole on August 21st, 2024.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from council members before we consider the 4 amendments in front of us? I don't see any questions from council. For the benefit of the public, our chain of events are going to be the council will consider the 4 prepared amendments that we're aware of. We'll consider those amendments. Then we will open it up for a public hearing on the proposal potentially as amended. If any of the amendments are adopted, then it would be the proposal in front of us as amended. We will take public comment on that proposal as amended. So we'll consider 4 amendments, open up for a public hearing, hear from the public, and then we will consider the final bill after we hear from the public. So we have Council Amendment number 1 before us. Vice Chair Campbell for a motion, please.
Thank you, Chair. I move Council Amendment number 1 to Proposal O 2024-543S2.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt Council Amendment number 1. Mr. Boki.
Thank you, Chair Mello. Council Amendment 1 makes a couple of what I would deem technical changes to the budget, and this has to do with there are two provisos out there that had numbers in them, and after Amendment 1 was approved at the Committee of the Whole, these numbers needed to be changed. So the first one is on page 4 of the proposal, line 25, and right now it reads, and you're removing the strikeout from the $50,539,300 and removing $53,039,300, which was put in there because of changes. That there was $2.5 million. It has to do with the $2.5 million being moved. So this would move it back down to where it is currently in the budget to $50,539,300. The next one is on page 6. And I believe it is actually on line 5, and it is a proviso in the ARPA area, and it's provided up to right now. You're going to replace $5,440,300 with $7,940,300 because the $2.5 million remained. But there was a change a little bit in the $140,000 because of the change in the youth diversion program. So your new number is going to be $7,940,300.
Are there questions or comments about this technical amendment? It makes the math work. Not seeing any. All those in favor of adopting Council Amendment number 1, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion is adopted. We have Council Amendment number 2 before us. Councilmember Morell for a motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Council Amendment number 2 to Proposal O 2024-543S2.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt Council Amendment number 2. Mr. Boki to brief the council.
Thank you, Chair Mello. So I think earlier in the day I described Council Amendment 2 as it's a fairly short amendment, but it is extensive from the standpoint that it really does remove a number of the items that were in Amendment 1 at the Committee of the Whole, and restores the items prior, and those would be the items that were in the original budget as presented and sent up here by the executive. So the 3 main items that don't change are the aforementioned date change in the council proviso for the reporting requirement, the $2 million from the opioid settlement fund for mobile opioid treatment programs, that remains. And in Exhibit A, There were 3 members that decided to take their unallocated 2025 portions of prevention services dollars and allot those for 2025. That remains, and the miscellaneous current expense reallocation in there also remains. Beyond that, you are restoring. You are taking out the money. You're restoring the money to the Housing NOFA 2022-2023. That's in the ARPA section of the budget. In the budget, yes. You're striking out the housing and homeless services. You're actually putting in housing and homeless services $635,000 in ARPA as proposed by the executive. Then on page 7, you're going to remove lines 10 through 43, temporary non-congregate micro shelter communities in their entirety. So it's taking that amount out and then taking out all the provisos. That's why it covers lines 10 through 43. Then on page 10 of the proposal in lines 1 through 4, and this is where Amendment 1 just takes about $2.5 million or whatever, and protects it, the non-congregate, the temporary non-congregate micro shelter communities is funded by council intent out of interest earnings, and there are valid reasons for that. This would restore the $13,383,408 in COVID-19 American Rescue Plan interest earnings and are designated for the following projects: Aviva Crossing, $6,654,003, Gravity Lake Commons, $3,500,000, and Clarion Medical Respite, $3,229,405. And then there's some other removals. It also removes the monies that were appropriated for parks impact fees, and it also changes the Section 18 that we just talked about back to the original language.
Thank you for briefing on the amendment, Mr. Boki. Are there comments or questions by council members? Councilmember Morrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in favor of this amendment. I think Mr. Boki laid the bulk of it out. But what this amendment reflects is a difference in priorities and funding. Using American Rescue Plan interest dollars on a one-time funding for a huge problem that we have in Pierce County, which is affordable housing, especially permanent supportive housing. This redirects those dollars into several projects, as it was stated: Aviva Crossing, Gravely Lake Commons, and Clarion Medical Respite. For you who don't know anything about Clarion Medical Respite, is the Lehigh had purchased this facility using ARPA funds early on in the process, and they were going to build out the facility to include some non-congregate emergency shelter, some emergency respite rooms, and some permanent supportive housing, a total of 130 units, which 60 would be non-congregate emergency shelter. Unfortunately, they were $2 million short, and so the project struggles to move forward. This would basically get them over the finish line on that particular project. This also, as Mr. Boki says, it keeps the $2 million that we desperately need to handle the opioid challenge in starting up the mobile medication units. And there again, I think it allows the council members to use their prevention dollars the way they want to use them. So in reality, that is just what this amendment is. It's a difference in how we use the funding. And like I say, I think
in this case, any time that we can invest dollars into permanent supportive housing is a way that this council can invest not for just generation but multiple generations in these one-time American Rescue Plan dollars. So for me to support not only the 30% and below, which some of the previous language had in there, but this also supports single moms, single dads, working families to find housing in Pierce County. So for me, this is a win-win, and I would hopefully the council will see that in this logical approach to using this funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Morell. Councilor Cruver.
Thank you, Chair. I have to agree. I appreciate this amendment. It seems to be kind of a cleanup, and there's really not the controversial elements that are in it. It will help solve the problems and issues we have at hand and not commit us to further financial burdens down the road. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilor Herrera.
Thank you, Chair. To support this amendment, I think it's the right way. Councilmember Morell spoke on the using the funds to provide a legacy of these funds. I mean, this is a one-time that we get these ARPA funds, and when they're gone, they're gone. But investing in projects that are going to be there for generations to help families from today until many generations down the road, I think is the right thing. So I urge a yes vote. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'd respectfully ask for a no vote. The underlying proposal makes all of these investments and then some. The underlying proposal the council will be considering invests in Clarion Medical Respite. Folks who are in a medical emergency and staying in the hospital is not effective or efficient or cost effective. So they don't need to be in a hospital, but they have nowhere to go. They don't have family or friends or anywhere to go, so they go to medical respite. The underlying proposal funds the Clarion Medical Respite at the same exact amount. We also invest in these other two long-term permanently affordable housing projects. So the underlying proposal makes all of these investments, but it actually goes further because we truly believe we have a homelessness crisis, and we believe we need to move folks off the streets into stable housing, and that the system demands more support. Our proposal pluses up the homelessness and housing services program from $600,000 to $35,000 in the executive proposal up to $3.2 million because the system needs that much investment and actually much more. We know this from the many briefings we get from our professional staff at our select committee on homelessness. We need a lot more case management, culturally competent case management that speaks different languages. We need more emergency shelter. We need more outreach. So that's why the underlying proposal increases that appropriation to $3.2 million and why the underlying proposal keeps dollars in the budget to help get people who are living unsheltered under freeway overpasses, streets, business districts, and parks, and move them into non-congregate tiny home village type arrangements. It makes other investments that this amendment takes away. Money that we promised to Peninsula Metropolitan Park District so they can build more recreation access, and other important elements that were in the budget that we debated and this council already passed a week ago. So for those reasons, I would ask for a no vote. Anyone want to call for a roll call vote? Not saying any, we'll take a voice vote. All those in favor of adopting Council Amendment number 2, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Nay.
By my ear, the motion is...
There was a division there.
Someone called for division, so we will take a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Hitchin.
Nay.
Councilmember Morell.
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell.
Nay.
Councilmember Cruver.
Aye.
Councilmember Denson.
Nay.
Councilmember Herrera,
Aye.
Councilmember Mello.
Nay.
The result of the roll call vote is 4 nays and 3 ayes.
On a vote of 3 ayes and 4 nays, the amendment is not adopted. We have Council Amendment number 3 before us. Councilmember Hitchin for a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move Council Amendment number 3 to O-2024-543-S2.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt Council Amendment number 3. Mr. Bokeh to brief.
Thank you, Chair Mello. This is an amendment on page 7 of the proposal, lines 13 through 43, and this deals with the temporary non-congregate micro-shelter communities. This was an appropriation done by the council. So there is a large proviso there, and this makes changes to the proviso. So what you see first in the first portion of this is the changes that are being asked in this proviso. So I'll just go through this quickly. On the first line of the proviso, it says provided $2.5 million of this appropriation shall be used for, and one or more is struck, and the words up to 3 is inserted. So we'll now read up to 3 low barrier temporary non-congregate micro shelter communities. And then in the and then there's new numbering there, A through well, it goes on to A through M. And so be located outside the city of Tacoma. There's a new B, prohibit tents from being used for individual sleeping shelters or structures. A new C, be limited to a total of 60 inhabitants in each community. A new D, require inhabitants to be 18 years of age or older. Individuals under the age of 18 shall only be allowed if accompanied by a parent or guardian. And then there's some other changes in E, operate, and that's capitalization. And then in F, you would now have for toilets at a ratio, be provided at a ratio of 1 per 15 inhabitants. G would provide showers at a ratio of 1 per 20 inhabitants. And then there's provided, the word provided is inserted for provide potable water, provide garbage collection, provide a food prep area, and then require residents to adhere to a code of conduct that prohibits on-site use of alcohol and illicit drugs. L, have a pest control plan, and M, have fire and safety plans and protocols. And then the highest priority it lists, there's a new line, item B, located in the incorporated areas of the county, but not in the city of Tacoma. And then another part at the end of the proviso, at least 30 calendar days prior to finalizing the funding agreement or contract, the managing agency or sponsor shall conduct a public meeting at the proposed site of the community for the purpose of discussing neighborhood concerns. The Human Services Department must facilitate notification of the meeting, and a representative of the department must attend. So that are the changes, and this is Councilmember Hitchens.
Questions or comments by council members? Councilmember Hitchin.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate the portion that was left off this morning is the noticing. So I appreciate the everybody kind of looking for that, because we did hear that loud and clear that people wanted to be able to bring their concerns before one of these were established in their community. And one of the things we did is that to calendar this, it's at least 30 calendar days. That's a minimum. And that human services staff will be there along with whomever is going to be running these. And so the idea is to bring public feedback before it's actually up and running. And that could allow the Human Services Department to go back and work if there was something that was flagged that they were not aware of with the provider. Again, this is in partnership and this is an opportunity. And we are hoping that someone will take us up on this. And the other things that we heard were addressed in some of these other items, but it's a finite amount of money, so it's up to 3. These are temporary, prohibits tents. So we're looking for tiny homes, structures of that kind. smaller communities so that it can really provide for those one-on-one interactions so we can get people into the services that they need, provide the stability that they need to try and move them to permanent supportive housing or housing in general. Requires that the people living there either have a guardian if they are a minor or a parent, and then the other things that came up that were high priority for the community. We heard both from the executive in his comments, from my colleagues at the dais, some of the concerns. And so those are addressed in here to make sure that if someone does take us up on this opportunity, that these are the things that are important, we think help us provide the services in our community outside the city limits of Tacoma, with a priority in our incorporated areas. So we have a variety of cities and towns in our county that would be eligible to do this. And then we'll just leave it at that. So thank you, Chair, and thank you for the staff helping us put this together so quickly.
Thank you, Councilmember Hitchen. Vice Chair Campbell.
Thank you, Chair, and Councilmember Hitchen, thank you for kind of filling in that spot on notification. I think there was some confusion around 540S that some people were saying there was no or little notification, and fact of the matter is we just put some minimums in. It would be up to the department to do the maximum amount of notification that they felt was appropriate. We did not, and this does not put a maximum on the amount of public outreach. This is just some very bare minimum, and of course the organizations doing it, the cities that they're located in, the human services staff are all not restricted by this guidance or anything that was in 540 from doing more and talking with people more about what's going on. And so we encourage people to do what they see as fit, and we were trying not to, I guess, be overly constraining or overly prescriptive. It's now being messaged in a backwards way of nothing was laid down when really it was everything was laid before you as an opportunity. And I think that this continues with the allowing maximum flexibility for those who are and will be standing these up in our committees to do as much public comment as they need to make the community comfortable with this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Campbell. As we've noted before, this council has made homelessness interventions and really tackling the homelessness crisis a major priority. That's why we created a select committee on homelessness. And many of us participated in the point in time count. I know Executive Danmeyer did too. I was on his team along with Councilmembers Morell and Herrera. We were in a bus for many hours, a van for many hours one night, and Councilmember Denson. We were in the same van with some other professional outreach workers. And, at the end of the 24-hour count, which is very widely understood to be a undercount of the homeless population, but it's a count nonetheless. It's not meant to be perfect. It's meant to be a census in one 24-hour period. And we identified everyone who was counting, the hundreds of people that were counting across Pierce County. That one night at the end of January earlier this year counted 2,661 souls who were homeless that one day. Many of them did have shelter from the shelter system, but 935 folks did not. 935 people did not. We know we don't have enough shelter capacity. We know that we've learned very squarely in the Select Committee on Homelessness. We've asked the questions and dug into the data. Why do some shelter beds, not many, but why do some shelter beds go unused every night? Well, it's for a couple of key reasons. Folks don't want to sleep in a cot right next to someone. With some of the sheltering options, they can't bring their pet or their belongings, or they have to leave at 7 in the morning the next day. So what do they do with all their stuff when they try to go to work or pursue their life goals? They can't with many of the current offerings. That's why this council is so bullish on answering many of the things that we've been learning in the Select Committee on Homelessness about non-congregate shelter. We also know that non-congregate shelter helps position us for more of that housing and urban development money that we are failing at achieving. Our county gets $4 million a year from the federal government for homelessness interventions. Our peer county to the north, Snohomish County, gets over $16 million. Identifying more non-congregate shelter, like the very thing we're debating right this instant, is identified very clearly as one of the things we need to do more of in order to score better and get more money from the federal government. So this amendment answers what we read in the executive's veto letter about limiting the number. He was concerned that there would be so many of them everywhere. He was worried about tent cities popping up, and he was supposedly worried about public notice. This amendment addresses squarely what we read in his veto letter, and we hope he reads the bill and hope he sees that we are addressing the concerns that we heard in his veto letter and makes these dollars available to attack this very serious challenge that's in front of our community. I don't see any other comments. Madam Clerk, why don't we just go to a roll call vote, please, on Council Amendment number 3, which places many different provisions and clarity about how to spend these dollars to make them well managed.
Councilmember Morrell?
No.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Krueger?
Nay.
Councilmember Dunson?
Aye.
Councilmember Herrera?
Nay.
Councilmember Hitchin?
Aye.
Councilmember Mello?
Aye.
The results of the roll call vote is 4 ayes and 3 nays.
On a vote of 4 ayes and 3 nays, the amendment is adopted. Vice Chair Campbell for moving Council Amendment number 4, please.
Thank you, Chair. I move Council Amendment number 4 to proposal number O, 2024-543S2.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt Council Amendment number 4. Mr. Boki.
Thank you, Chair Mello. Council Amendment number 4 amends an item on page 10 of the proposal, lines 8 through 32. It's the it's the homeless document recording fee fund. So this is one of the items that was inserted in Amendment 1 at the Committee of the Whole. There's just one change to the proviso, and it's after the word contract, adding the following: without the approval of the County Council, period, the Human Services Department must notify the County Council in writing at least 21 days prior to the proposed due date to sign the contract modification, amendment, or extension. Approval by the County Council shall occur by motion or resolution. So let me read the first sentence, and this will explain the change. The existing sentence says the Human Services Department may not use this funding to supplement, amend, or extend an existing contract, and then it goes on. Now it'll read, they may not use this funding to supplement, amend, or extend an existing contract without the approval of the County Council, and then it adds that other language dealing with the time element.
Thank you. The purpose of the amendment is to bring transparency to the process of amending or extending existing contracts so that Council has awareness and approval at the end of the day of amending or extending any existing contract through the Homeless Document Recording Fee Fund. Any questions or comments by Council members? Seeing none, we'll take a voice vote. All those in favor of adopting Council Amendment number 4, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
The motion is adopted. We have the proposal in front of us as amended. Are there any other amendments by other members before we open up for a public hearing? I don't see any. So this is a public hearing on the Council's summer supplemental budget as amended. We adopted 3 of the 4 amendments that were in front of us, so it is amended before the body, and it's now time for public comment. So let's start here in Council chambers. We'll start with those who signed up. Daniel Gray, followed by Jaquan Satchel, and then Robert Hill. Welcome.
Thank you. Yep, my name is Daniel Gray. I live in University Place. I formerly was a bishop in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. However, I'm speaking as an individual now, not as a leader of that congregation. That ended 2 years ago. I think I have the support, though, of many of the ecclesiastical leaders in the community. I just want to share a success story. 3 years ago, during that really hot summer of 2021, our church is at 2455 South 78th Street in Tacoma, next to Bates College. And a woman came into our church on a Sunday morning with some assistance from people. She was wobbly in her senior years. And she asked for the bishop. And I, being the bishop, I spoke with her. She said, I need some food. I said, well, I was inspired to ask, well, where did you sleep last night? Because I like to know where they're from. She said, well, I slept across the street in a van, and the van was stolen, and people were renting out that stolen van to this woman who had Social Security. Half of her Social Security went to pay for her to sleep in a van. That week it was approaching 100 degrees. So we immediately said, you can't sleep in that van. We needed to get her into a motel. So we took a collection and got her into a motel for a week. That's when the journey began. I spent the next 3 months working with every resource that I could find in Pierce County, starting with 211, Associated Ministries, Department of Health Services. And the barriers were many. And what the proposal you have to overcome those barriers is so crucial, because you're talking about the supply of housing, which we could have got her into housing if I could have found a home for her. That was the message we got from everybody. We'll get her a place to live and we'll pay for her to live there. That's the Associated Ministries can do that. But the housing wasn't there. We couldn't find it. Mental health assessment and treatment is key. Income and employment opportunities are the key. So all the things that this ordinance would address, I think will take the burden off the citizens of this county who are trying to make a difference for people. We want people to be in homes and be in housing and not be on the street. So I support what you're proposing to adopt. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Jaquan, followed by Robert Hill, followed by Eva Bowen.
Sorry, my statement was supposed to be for 540S, not 543.
We're on the supplemental budget.
Oh, okay.
So anything related to this budget proposal.
Okay, yeah.
Do you have anything to share on this?
No.
Okay. There is not a public hearing on anything else today. We will go to community forum after we consider the budget. So this is the public hearing on our summer supplemental budget. Robert Hill, please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes to make your remarks. Then Eva Bowen, and then Kara Gadbury.
Robert Hill, I reside at 1427 52nd Street South in Tacoma. For informational purposes only, I'm attempting to be a candidate for state senate. I have 2 substantive new proposals to add to this budget modification. But first, I want to point out on page 1 of the document, at line 5, there's an error. To the left of ordinance is missing the word proposed in brackets. This has not been adopted yet. It's a proposed ordinance. I would ask that you have the acting chief clerk have that be included in this proposal and any future ordinances and resolutions. If you had allowed testimony on the amendments, I supported on amendment number 1, yes, the first item, no, the second item. For Amendment 3, I basically opposed 1B and 1C. If I could have spoken to that, the prohibition on tents being used, the limitation of 60. On Amendment number 4, no position on that. What is in Amendment number 2 has the guts of what I want to start with. Item 1, I would have opposed that. Item 3, I would have opposed that. Item 2, needed to have a name change from Homeless and Housing Services to Transportation Assistance for Homeless Relocation. That money, or even half of that amount, should be made available to the contract agencies to offer to the homeless individuals a one-way Greyhound bus ticket or a one-way Amtrak train ticket at least 600 miles away from this county. My anecdotal evidence says that 70% of the homeless are dope heads, drug addicts. So people may have non-altruistic reasons for supporting what I've said. I think it's a humane measure. I think it's a frugal measure to offer this to people that don't have the money to get back to where they maybe came from. New York, Florida, Texas, Nebraska, Maine, Minnesota, where they have family, where they have a support network. Maybe they just don't like being in Washington or Pierce County. Want to leave. Would you like to leave? $120 bus ticket, train ticket. That's frugal. Then you're going to save thousands on support services and mental health that they will get in that other jurisdiction. So $635,000 for bus tickets and train tickets is a reasonable proposal. Item number 2, it addresses the veto of 540S. The county, not private organizations, the county should put up 2 circus.
Your time's expired. Thank you.
Circus tents for people to
Thank you. Eva Bowen, followed by Kara Gadbury.
Good afternoon. I am Eva Bowen, and I live in University Place. As was referenced by Councilperson Mello, based on estimates from the Pierce County Human Services Department and the 2024 point-in-time count, the county is currently short almost 1,000 shelter beds to meet the needs of those in crisis. 2,261 people counted during the 2024 point-in-time count, with only 1,726 current county shelter units. That leaves 935 people without shelter. Without more shelter, people will die on the streets from the extreme heat and cold weather patterns. Temporary housing and permanently affordable housing are needed. Pierce County can do both. While more units are being built, temporary housing needs are in crisis. Those housing needs are dire and should be valued by council and executive as a first step in reducing trauma and vulnerability to residents. Sanctioned temporary housing communities like tiny home villages are clean and regulated. Drugs and alcohol are prohibited. These are not tent cities. A decision to create temporary housing should be a bipartisan issue, not one based on whether one is a Republican or Democrat. I urge all council members and the executive to support the full funding to meet the needs of those unhoused in Pierce County. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Kara? Is Kara here? Does anyone else in council chambers wish to provide comment on our summer supplemental budget? We'll invite you to the podium and state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes to make your remarks.
Signed up late, sorry. Sally Perkins, District 4. I'd like to start out by talking about beds. Very recently, we adopted a little sheltered kitty cat. Yep, I'm one of those childless cat ladies with no stake in the future of my community. She's tiny. She's 7 pounds. She's scared to death. She jumped right in the rag bin as soon as she got home. A couple days later, we got her own bed. She loves her bed. We can hardly get her out of it. It's her safe place. Which made me think of when I tutored high school Hilltop Scholars at the Peace Community Center. Yep, no stake in my community. Most of our students had many challenges, including unstable housing. One student whose situation was particularly difficult eventually got the chance to live with a neighborhood family. When I asked the student how things were going at the new place, they responded, "I have my own bed, and then spent about 5 minutes describing every feature of that bed. Finally, getting your own bed is a powerful message of caring and stability. Every housing-related project in this supplemental budget is a place for people with unstable housing to finally get their own beds, a safe place to lay their heads, and start to build stability. And yet some of you, likely more fortunate than our little stray cat or the high school kid sleeping on the floor or a homeless person sleeping on concrete, can't seem to see your way clear to approving desperately needed money for more shelter and more housing. And I'm pretty sure now that the bill has taken its final form that this budget will pass 4-3, and probably the executive has already started to draft his veto message. Mr. Chair, I would like you to communicate the following points to the executive. You got $17 million for your pet project, so now you want to screw everybody else? This kind of game playing to try to manipulate election year politics? Well, thank God for term limits. What you are doing is an abuse of your power. What you are doing is playing games, all right, but not just political games. You are playing games with people's lives and well-being. And you are doing this by promoting falsehoods, stereotypes, and fear-mongering. If my mother were still alive, she'd come down here and wash your mouth out with soap. You will end your tenure as county executive by being known for punching down on homeless people, some of the least powerful and most vulnerable of your constituents. Congratulations, sir. This will be your legacy. In the immortal words of Maya Angelou, when a person shows you who they are, believe them. And yet, the definition of optimism is, someone will fix this. The definition of hope is, I will help fix this. I choose hope. The day will come when Pierce County will do the right thing. May it be so sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Any other member of the public wish to provide comment on the summer supplemental budget? Please state your name for the record.
Ken Paulson. So when I drive at night in the city of Tacoma, I'm very concerned about driving next to the sidewalk because people pop out, and it's like they have a right to step out without looking, without being on a crosswalk, just walk out. And at night, it's highly risky for the driver to be next to the sidewalk. Or on the 4-lane road, I'm in the center lane. And possibly those people are on something. And I kind of think that if there was less of them in Tacoma, that would be nicer. I'm very concerned about running one of them over because, once again, they pop out. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to provide comment on the summer supplemental budget? Not seeing anybody in chambers. Mr. Dominique, anybody in our Zoom room?
For any member of the public? For any member of the public that would like to provide comment on proposal number O 2024-543S2, please press the raise hand icon in Zoom or *9 on your telephone keypad. And we have 7 hands raised at this time, Chair. We'll begin with caller ending in number 075. Please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Roxy Giddings. I just wanted to say thank you very much for putting into this budget a coordinator. Coordinating all of these wonderful services that are being provided by dozens of people it's just going to help so much to get everything done, because the people in need have been in need for such a long time that a lot of them aren't even still with us. And so I really think this coordination is going to be the key to getting things done, and done quickly, and get people into the right place for their needs. And I am so tired of hearing about the drug people and the mentally ill people. I don't think they all are when they become homeless. I think they become homeless when they have been injured or in some way have a problem, especially a financial problem. And They just need help, and they need it quickly. And if we can get it to them before they're completely devastated by not having any housing, then we are going to be everywhere we want to be. And I'm just really enthusiastic about this budget. So please say yes.
Thank you.
Next, we have John Luther. Please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes. There you go. All right, it looks like John Luther is not with us anymore. Steve Nixon, please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Steve Nixon, and I am a commissioner for Penn Met Parks. Good afternoon, Council Chair Mello and council members. And first off, I'd just like to start by saying thank you for your service. You guys have a lot of stuff to consider, and I know we consider a lot at the Park District, but you guys are definitely next level, so thank you. Again, I don't want to take too much of your time this afternoon, but I felt it was important for me to speak in favor of proposal number O-2024-543 S2, amending the Parks Impact Fee Fund budget to appropriate funds to Penn Met Parks. As I think you know, Penn Met provides parks and recreation services for the unincorporated area of Pierce County on the Gig Harbor Peninsula. Just like in many areas of Pierce County, we have seen significant growth over the last 20 years. I think all agencies struggle to mitigate the impacts of growth while maintaining a level of service that's appropriate for their community, a lot of which you guys were talking about today. This funding will provide significant support in allowing Penn Met Parks to mitigate the impact of growth in our community. Penn Met has recently formalized a partnership with Peninsula School District to provide a force multiplier in our community for health and wellness. We are seeking partnerships to help us provide these key services. Penn Met Parks is nearing completion of our $31 million recreation center, and we have completed renovation of 2 historic community hubs at Arletta and Rosedale. We replaced the artificial turf and added field lighting at Zima Homestead Park, and we continue to look for ways to expand capacity for parks and recreation in our community. It has been great to work with Councilmember Denson, Mr. Kruger, the County Executive's Office, and Director Miles in advancing this important appropriation. I want to thank you for your recognition that growth impacts us all, and this funding will make a real difference in helping Penn Met mitigate those impacts for residents of unincorporated Pierce County in our district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Heidi G.S. Please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Heidi Stevens from Tacoma, speaking on the amended ordinance and substituted supplemental budget to include affordable housing, homelessness, and the opioid crisis. I understand some of this funding is reaching a deadline to be spent, but this proposed budget is not simply just spending money for spending's sake. This money should have been allocated and already in place. This shouldn't be made into a partisan issue. Lack of these services to those in need is affecting all of us. Our communities are in crisis and need this funding plan enacted now. Please set the partisan separations aside, pass this proposed supplemental budget as sponsored and supported by Councilmember Mello, and get it signed into law as soon as possible to improve the disasters, which will only grow worse otherwise. That's what we can't afford. As the committee recommended, please pass this plan and do not veto it. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us.
Next, we have April Smith. Please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, April Smith, District 5.
I second what Sally Perkins said, and I choose hope for Pierce County. I hope that this will pass and to help the homeless as well as accomplish what the executive wants. I have hope that he will be responsible as well and not veto it. It's enough of this not in my backyard game and push all housing to Tacoma. All of Pierce County needs to step up. Please pass this amended budget, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for being with us.
Next, we have Nicholas Carr with the Tacoma Housing Authority. Please make your remarks.
Hello, Chair Mello and members of the council. This is Nicholas Carr, and a governmental affairs manager for Tacoma Housing Authority. Today, I'm happy to be with you today, and thank you for the opportunity to testify again. Last week, I noted my support for Amendment 1 to the proposal number 02024-543S on behalf of the Tacoma Housing Authority. Today, I'm expressing Tacoma Housing Authority support for today's substituted and now amended proposal 02024-543S2, which would help to fund both our infrastructure needs at Aviva and also would allow additional resources to be allocated for the non-congregate sanctioned shelter communities in an unincorporated county. As I mentioned last week, and I'll briefly remind you today, this proposal would shift money necessary for completing the infrastructure for up to 500 new units of affordable housing. It will support Pierce County families and students with units priced from 40 to 80% of the area median income. It also supports the future of transit-oriented development at Tacoma Community College in anticipation of the T-Link in 2041. This project is delivering on a long-time vision and is now very close to reality. And I have some updates for you since last week. So the City of Tacoma has come to the table with an additional $1 million for one of our partners on this project, helping to further close that infrastructure funding gap that the project is facing. We intend to continue to build additional support from the State Department of Commerce to help complete this. And with the county support of the proposed 1.865 appropriation, we're done. This means that with the approval of this budget, we will finalize the necessary funding gaps and the project be officially moving forward with strong support from the city, the county, and the state all together. This kind of multi-jurisdictional collaboration is exactly how this process works, and we're proud to be at the finish line with 500 new units on the horizon. And yet it seems like the inclusion of the ARPA funding for non-congregate temporary shelter is limited movement for everyone's priorities. And listen, we understand the consternation and disagreement around the development of stability sites and temporary shelter. There are legitimate concerns. But this proposal seems like an opportunity to work together to ensure that those disagreements are mitigated by structuring the non-congregate shelter money in such a way that produces a product that it can get behind, avoiding the troublesome issues associated with stability sites and producing the kind of temporary shelter that saves lives. I urge you to consider this to move forward, because at the end of the day, we believe this compromise is a great use of both sources and offers a solution in partnership by acknowledging and agreeing to both the executive and the council's priorities. Please consider our support for this proposal and work to compromise so we can move forward with this critical, permanent, affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Andrea. Please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello there. My name is Andrea Hogue, and I am the current chair for the South End Neighborhood Council here in Tacoma. And I also chair the Community Council of Tacoma, where all 8 neighborhood councils meet. I'm here today as a human being and a community member to support this as amended. And I am a boots to the ground type of person. We need micro shelters. We need transitional housing. We need low barrier opportunities for the people who are experiencing drug addiction and homelessness at this point in time. Yesterday, I counted 55 individuals in a 2-block radius who could all use resources, and really there wasn't any resources that I could offer them. We need to approve this. This needs to not be a partisan issue. As a nonpartisan volunteer community member, I can get along with everybody. I can put humanity first. I think that you're all capable of it, and I urge the executive and the council to support this. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us.
All right, next we have John Luther. Please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
John, we see that you're still muted. John, are you able to, there you go.
Can you guys hear me? Hello?
Yeah, now we can. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you. My name is John Luther. I represent Multicultural Child and Family Hope Center and the Tacoma Recovery Center. And thank you for promoting overdose awareness and acknowledging the opioid crisis earlier. The program I'm advocating for today addresses these both, plus access to shelter and housing. And I'm here to speak in regards to the summer supplemental budget to support funding for the housing and homeless program. Specifically, our street outreach program is severely impacted by this program. We're doing street outreach in the community as we speak, operating extensively throughout the county. That includes underserved, unincorporated areas like Key Peninsula, Spanaway, Parkland, and elsewhere. We meet unsheltered clients where they are, and we connect them with services and housing. Our street outreach funding was, we were funded back-to-back cycles by the HHP competitive grant opportunity, but we missed the opportunity this year. In December, our email mistakenly produced a bounce back to the county's OpenGov procurement system, and it removed us from any notifications. We appreciate Pierce County Human Services efforts in troubleshooting that for us so we don't miss any future opportunities, but we've also been encouraged to support the summer supplemental funding today as our street outreach program has been identified by the county as essential to the coordinated entry system and the point-in-time count. As you all know, homelessness in the county has increased 23% last year, with 41% of those affected being persons of color. Mental health, substance use, and chronic health conditions, those are the most significant contributors. When we conduct our street outreach, the first question we get from our unhoused neighbors is, who are you with? And when we say multicultural, they trust us, they're open to our services, and we are, to our knowledge, one of the only buy-in for street outreach providers in the county. We also operate the central street outreach warehouse used by the county, the Homeless Coalition, and other outreach providers. With a 2 to 3 year wait list for coordinated entry for housing, we play a crucial role in keeping residents connected and ensuring they don't miss appointments or phone calls. If they do, their process starts over from the beginning. The street outreach that we do, it remains one of the highest volume coordinators for connecting unsheltered clients with inpatient rehabilitation services, medical, substance use disorder recovery, and shelter. We operate it year-round in emergencies and inclement weather. The HHP supplemental funding can support our street outreach efforts and other vital efforts throughout the community. Thank you, Council, for your time and consideration and your collaboration in addressing housing and recovery needs throughout Pierce County.
Thank you for being with us and for the work that you do.
Next, we have a caller ending in 425. Please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hey guys, this is John Luther. I tried to call in by phone. I don't have any more input. Thank you, though.
Thank you, John. Thank you for being available.
And there are no more, there are no more hands at this time, Chair.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands, so we're going to close the public hearing on the summer supplemental budget and bring it back to the council. Are there final remarks by council members? We'll begin with Councilmember Hitchin.
Thank you, Chair. I want to start with acknowledgements and thanks both to our council staff and department staff that were here and walked with us as we developed this from its submission by the executive. The priorities that are in the amended budget here as we look going forward really look at how do we provide a continuum of care for our community members that are struggling to be housed. And that is finding stability both with substance use disorder, access to shelter, access to community, all the way to permanent supportive housing or just flat out housing. And I really think this is such a huge priority for us, but that's what we need. We need a continuum of care. When someone leaves our emergency room but is unhoused, if we put them on the streets, they're going to end up back in the emergency room with infections, chronic disease coming back, other types of issues that we then just pay for, allow them to heal, and then they go back out. This would allow us to invest in that continuum of care where we have housing for people who are exiting the hospital. We would have substance use disorder that comes to somebody who maybe is currently housed in a temporary housing community or safe parking or out further away from Tacoma. And hopefully that keeps them stable so that they do not become unhoused in full right. And I love that this does this. It does that continuum so that people can walk through life. As they hit a milestone, they can move up to the next level of support they need with a hope that eventually they'll get to a place where they're stable and don't need the supports, or that we've found stability so that they stay stably housed, which is huge. And so I just want to acknowledge that really, when I read this amended budget, that's what I see. I see a continuum of supports to try and meet the various needs of those in our community, and that is what we need right now, especially right now. So thank you to all that helped get us here and helped us draft the amendments and the changes, and I hope that it will pass and finish this process. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Morell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the points and discussions, but I do have a question to Mr. Boakey. He might be able to handle this. I might have to bring someone in to pinch hit if you don't. If this supplemental budget passes, on the $2.5 million housing for non-congregate shelters in unincorporated areas, in unincorporated areas, would we still have to pass a international residential building code for temporary structures?
Way out of my area of expertise there.
Mr. Taylor, you might be able to support. I'll begin the response. My understanding, the current code has a lot of hoops and barriers, I think intentional barriers that were put in the code over a decade ago to make sure that no shelter happens in unincorporated Pierce County. My estimation, the reading of the code is constructed in a way to really create significant barriers to emergency shelter like tiny home villages. But you can, under the current code, you can stand one up in unincorporated Pierce County if you're going to go through those immense barriers, and only for 90 days, a strict limit of only 90 days and lots of barriers. So you can do it in unincorporated Pierce County today, but with a lot of hoops and barriers and only for 90 days. Mr. Taylor, what would you add or correct?
As the chair stated, the county code does allow for temporary housing communities currently with limitations. Human Services has spoken extensively to those limitations at the Select Committee on Homelessness when they reported on the stability site process. As the chair points out, the current zoning code does allow for those uses, but it has significant limitations on where they can be placed. The limitations on the amount of time that they can be up and operating, the 90-day reference that was just pointed out. And as you ask about Councilmember Morell, there's also concerns relative to barriers in the building code for occupancy of structures. Now, it's possible some of those barriers can be overcome, but it's daunting. I think that's been covered significantly at the Select Committee of Homelessness and on homelessness and other venues.
Right. So the ordinance that just got vetoed attempted to deal with that in 540S. Is that not correct?
That's correct. It
and it got vetoed, right?
To address a number of those barriers, correct.
Okay. Thank you. Just to continue, Mr. Chair, you know, we have had many conversations about, you know, this council trying to wrap their hands around the homeless issue. We made some great progress in the Good Neighbors Village as it was addressed. Over 17 million invested into that project. But man, we kicked the hornet's nest with the community on that one. And it has gone through so many meetings to get that site approved in unincorporated Pierce County. Even though now the hearing examiner has approved the project, the group has appealed that. So the legal process continues on and on. And though I'd like to think there's a utopia out there that the community will not rise up on these temporary shelters, I don't think that's a utopia that I could live with. So passing this, knowing that we've got to go back for another ordinance to do the International Residential Code and upgrade, as it was stated by the chair, some of the onerous requirements that Pierce County had passed in, I think, 2017 to keep temporary shelters down to temporary, not like the city of Tacoma, that their temporary shelter has been up for 7 years now. And so I'm a little concerned about that approach. Also, this, as I said earlier in my amendment, is just looking at a different priority for the funding, especially for the ARPA, American Rescue Plan interest dollars, which is sizable, $13 million that we've got, that gives us a lot more flexibility. To me, investing into permanent supportive housing is a wiser choice than to do it for temporary emergency shelters that the funding to stand them up are a one-time fund, but the expenses will go on and on and on. They're not sustainable unless we decide within our general fund budget to start funding these type of operations. Human Services have been very good at making one-time investments with both CARES Act money and ARPA, American Rescue Plan money, so it wouldn't hinder our budget moving forward. My concern is, in talking to some of the council members at the city of Tacoma, they're looking at a $6 to $8 million deficit just in their homeless funding. And so, yeah, they're looking to push shelters out into unincorporated areas, even though as a county we have invested in those shelters. So my concern on this is there again kind of an end around on what I think is supposedly how to use that money, but also to build a budget that's sustainable for me moving forward. If this was a one-time investment, hey, more power to them, but this is not a one-time investment. This operation, capital, infrastructure, however you want to look at it, will go on and on. And what the Good Neighbor Village has had to go through to get their permanent shelters, micro village built is, I mean, that was a hill very high to climb, and they're still not over it. It's mainly because of the community. And so I have concerns about that. I wish we had a magic wand and we could have 289 micro shelters tomorrow built somewhere in unincorporated Pierce County, but it looks like, it's going to take a while. So in looking at this, I will not support this ordinance. It is mainly because of how the funding is stacked and set up, how many cookie jars we're reaching into to get funds to fund operations. I would rather retain 1590 funds in that account to use for permanent supportive housing instead of using it for other things. So with that, like I say, I don't see this really being effective within the use of the funds that is being stipulated in here. I appreciate trying to make it more palatable to the community, but I think in the end, it's an emergency shelter that will have homeless people there. And as we've known, other than the Six and Orchard, I will admit the Six and Orchard has done very well to keep the area cleaned up. The Stability site down in Tacoma, no, it's a mess. And I cannot support that moving out into unincorporated areas. So for me, on this particular issue, a lot of these issues could have been dealt with in the fall budget supplemental that we get every year. And this was supposed to be just ARPA as far as American Rescue Plan supplemental budget. Well, we expanded it and threw a bunch of things into it, and here we go, running off. So I appreciate the concerns. I know there are many. I think there is not an urban area in America that has not seen an increase in their homeless population. All the articles that I'm reading lately, due to the grants pass, federal court decision, a lot of people are taking a pause on how they're spending their homeless dollars, because the billions and billions of dollars that they have spent has had almost zero impact, and it continues to grow. So I think there again, we need to take more of a global look at this and go, okay, what's going on here? Because I can guarantee you, we can put 3 shelters out in unincorporated areas. There won't be enough. And they'll just keep happening, keep growing, because historically I can see that. Whether it's Seattle, whether it's King County, Snohomish County, whether it's Oregon, California, city of San Francisco is having a drag-out battle over their homeless issues right now, even though they've spent well over $750 million to deal with it. It keeps growing. So I don't have a crystal ball, but I also know that just throwing money or spend now and we'll figure it out later is not a good way for this county to move forward. We had a plan that listed out the out years on how we're going to be able to support facilities like this. I'm okay with that. But no one's come up and said, yeah, when the American Rescue Plan dollars run out, how are we going to support these? And so I'm saying no, because it's just not sustainable. So thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate you letting me rant a little bit.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor, you don't have to stand there. Thank you. Thank you for answering the question. Other final remarks? Councilmember Cruver.
Thank you, Chair. I too want to say thank you to staff for all of the time spent on this. It's a very serious subject, and I want to applaud all of those who work in human services, because it's just not, it's not a fun job. And it reminded me of listening to somebody who was in foster care. Someone was saying about the child that didn't have a bed, I remember the stories of the child picked up from foster care who didn't have a toothbrush, and they weren't homeless. And also my niece used to work for the State Department, and she worked with the Afghan refugees, so I can try to imagine the things that she had seen in the homelessness. So it's definitely something in life with the human condition, and I know it takes a special kind of heart to minister to folks who are in that season of life. But there's the other side of the equation, and that's the expectation that is put on the taxpayer who now they're viewing Pierce County government as if it is some kind of a philanthropic agency, a 501c3, rather than a government. And, you know, we have foundations and nonprofits that have a fiduciary responsibility to the people because they get tax exemptions. And the taxes they don't pay are made up in the taxes that the working family has to pay. But yet when I look at a lot of the nonprofits and you look at their mission statement, it's about changing culture as opposed to helping the folks who are in need. And as I expressed last week, the solution is in housing. Mr. Gray, you're right. We don't have enough homes. And when I look back at the Growth Management Act, 34-ish years old, that whole thing was all suppressing the ability to build homes. There were so many rules and regulations that were placed on that. That's part of the reason we're in the situation we are today. But there's no relief for the regulatory system on building homes and helping us get to the things that we need to build out the homes for those who are looking. And the thing with District 3 seems to be picked on here. Since I represent that, I feel I have the authority to speak to that. And District 3, I'm sure many folks have heard the presentation that former Superintendent Tom Siegel gave on the lack of amenities that are out in the Bethel School District, which encompasses most of the 3rd District. Eatonville is also very small. But you've got 3 miles in the Bethel District. That's 1.2% of the 250 miles of bus service. And despite the 13.1% of the county's population, they have 1.2% of the transit, 1.8% of parks, 3.6 libraries, no sheriff detachments, and no social services. These are folks that, if we're looking at putting them in a section of property which abuts JBLM, so there's a lot of open space there. I don't know how much JBLM will be monitoring their land. But these folks are going to be looking for services that they need. And the transit, the system is not built out yet. It's very limited. There's very few jobs that are out there that can help in the triage needed for folks. And I was reading, I found an article on the village in Austin, which was the model for the community village here in Pierce County, the Good Neighbor Village. Now, the one thing with that program is they were funded by private entities at first. But now I'm reading they're up to 2,000 residents. And that's, my hometown was at 1,000. So it's 2 towns. And as Councilmember Morrell was relating to, was the growth everywhere in this system. So in the district also, so I've got the tiny home village there. We have some beautiful new low-income apartments that have been built at the Roy White. There is the property that is near the transit center that is looking to put the emergency shelter. And I went around the neighborhood, and they were not aware of this. It was almost by chance that I found out about it a short time ago. And I stopped at one neighbor, and their property is in contract to be purchased by Lehigh to add on to the area there. The neighbor on the other side is planning to sell. He's got a home built, and now he's extremely concerned about his investment in his property and what the resale value will be. I stopped at the neighborhood behind, and I knocked on the door, and here is a young family. The mom comes out with 2 twin boys, 4 months old, in her arms. And I'm trying to imagine this project is in their backyard. And it disrupts the small area. And also in my district, I have the former senior living center in McKenna, just on the other side of the bridge to Yelm. And there have been difficulties with that. I don't know a lot as much about that, but I'm told there are many stories to be told. And also there is property in Frederickson that is going to be used for more low-income housing. We need housing, and that's a good thing. However, the property, I think, was undersold at the expense of the taxpayer. And I'll just, nobody wants to see this misery. And I think it must be miserable living like that. There are some who don't realize it, but there are those that really want help. That's where I think we need to triage and getting those who are willing and need the help and ready to accept that should have the priority. The ARPA dollars, as Councilmember Morrell related, they are a finite amount, and the producers of the tax revenue, the taxpayer, are continuously being minimalized. They sit in the traffic, there's no roads, we don't have a road to the port, and now they are making businesses, if they're large enough, pay for trip reductions for their employees. These are expenses that are already burdening those who are producing the wealth to generate the taxes to pay for the services we are seeking here. Washington State, I found a year ago, spent $143 million to get 126 out of homelessness, and now the governor was asking for more. I think there's a problem with that. So it clearly, investing in more temporary shelters, particularly in areas that are deficient in services, is not a prudent use of public funds, nor is it desired by the constituents. The discretionary incomes of families is shrinking daily. And my constituents are not convinced that this is the best investment to be made in rural Pierce County. Maybe the Parkland School over there by PLU would be an entity for this. They've got the school, they've got the nursing college, all kinds of services within that area, and the building is there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other final remarks? Councilmember Herrera.
Thank you, Chair. And, you know, we've been talking about this with the code last week, and now we're here with trying to fund it. You know, Councilmember Morrell hit a lot of things that I wanted to talk about, and I agree with a lot of everything he was saying. But I just want to let the public know that, you know, Pierce County does a lot for homeless folks here in Pierce County. In this fiscal year, we're projected to spend over $53 million on homeless services across the county, compared to about $12 million in 2019. You know, from 2019 to 2024, Pierce County has spent a total of $174 million on homeless services, where about $32 million of that came from ARPA funds. You know, we do a lot. There's a lot happening here in Pierce County. In terms of homelessness shelters, you know, I think Tacoma has, I don't know, 25 or 30. They do a lot. But there's also at least 12 outside of Tacoma. You know, as a person who, in my previous job, I talked about this before, of being in these shelters in Tacoma and working in these areas before they had the stability sites, before they had these shelters. I saw the effects of them. They have good days and they have bad days. And I'll speak specifically about the stability site on Portland Avenue. When that came in 2017, the jungle, which was just down the way there underneath, I think, the freeway over here, which had lots of problems there, shifted to be around that stability site. The stability site helped a lot of people, but it seemed like it was a magnet. And I appreciate Councilmember Hitchens' amendment with all these rules about you know, not doing this or that inside these stability sites or tiny home shelters, but it's what's happening on the outside of these walls. The tents are 10 feet outside the doors of the stability site. You walk 150 meters in a circle around there. There's all kinds of dangerous things going on. I've talked to people who used to be in the stability site who, some aspects, felt trapped inside of there because of the stuff that was happening around it. That's what's happening in Tacoma. I fear that if we put these out in unincorporated Pierce County, there's a high chance of that happening. We can have all the rules and everything inside these tiny home villages, but they provide as magnets of other folks who aren't eligible to get in there or anything like that. So I don't think we need that. Tacoma has done a lot of these, and some folks, maybe on this dais, have talked about this while they were serving Tacoma. This is their second round on talking about how this is good for their city. Tacoma has 30 of these or so, and homelessness still went up. I think in the point in time count, that we do, we include Tacoma. And we still, well, just in general, I just don't think this is a good fit for unincorporated Pierce County. Tacoma or Pierce County does a lot for homelessness, and I'll be voting no for this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other final remarks? I guess I'll close our debate by first sharing that, I've been in local government for some time, and if I have learned anything, it's that making public policy and making law is about compromise. In this bill, the executive gets everything he's requested of the council. He gets every single item he's requested of us. Every single one. The council is simply, we do the investment to Aviva Crossing, 500 units of permanently affordable housing near Tacoma Community College to leverage City of Tacoma money and hopefully state dollars. We continue to fund the permanent supportive housing at Clarion Medical Respite, folks leaving a medical environment who still need care in a respite environment. We fund that permanent supportive housing. We fund Gravelly Lake Commons, 25 permanently affordable housing units in Lakewood. And all of the other requests, about 10 different requests the executive makes of us. We make each and every one of those investments that were asked of us. But again, making laws about compromise. It's not a one-way street. This isn't a monarchy. One person doesn't get to do everything. And the legislative branch is the branch responsible for writing budgets. The legislative branch is responsible for writing the budget. We appreciate the proposal from the executive. It's our job to consider that proposal. And this council continues to make housing, behavioral health, substance use disorder, and homelessness a major priority, and that's what we're doing with this budget bill. So in addition to all of the investments the executive asks us to make, we do them and more. We do much more of an investment for homelessness interventions through the homeless housing program. The executive asked for $630,000. The amount needed is so big. We heard when we debated the homeless housing program bill authorization a few months ago, we heard how big the need is. We had more than 3 times the amount requested than we had dollars available. And we told the community at that time, we will consider increasing this appropriation when we did a summer supplemental budget. Well, the council is keeping that commitment, and the council is making a $3.2 million investment in homelessness interventions like outreach, like case management, and emergency shelter. We know that the opioid crisis is real. The fentanyl crisis is real. That's why we want to deploy a medically mobile assisted treatment to deal with the opioid disorder. We want to deploy 2 of those to unserved and underserved Pierce County with this budget. And yes, we do want to build more shelter to get folks off the street. Look, last week and in the executive's veto, last week the message we heard was we were concerned about tents everywhere. We were concerned about not having public notice and the number of them. They could be everywhere. Well, we tried to address that today. So, and we heard, we like the 6th and Orchard Village model. We went to go take a tour of it. So we can constrain the appropriation to be very, very much like the 6th and Orchard model and not the stability site model that some folks don't seem to like. So we addressed all of the concerns we've heard in writing and here today, but maybe that's not really the concerns. I don't know. But we did try to address the concerns that were given to us in this appropriation for $2.5 million to financially incentivize communities other than Tacoma to do their part. It doesn't have to be in unincorporated Pierce County. These dollars are available for any community outside of Tacoma. And that's 3/4 of the population of Pierce County. 3/4 of the population in Pierce County lives outside the city of Tacoma. Yet Tacoma has 80% of the homelessness interventions. So we're simply trying to give a financial incentive for others to participate in helping get unsheltered folks off the street. And look, I know there's concern about the Good Neighbor Village. We've poured millions of dollars into the Good Neighbor Village. We were promised it was going to open up this last summer. If you look back at the documentation that we were given and the months of public hearings we participated in, we were promised it was going to open up in July of this year. The last report we got from the finance department says at the earliest, it'll be 2 Thanksgivings from now. 2 Thanksgivings from now, 2 years from now. More than 2 years from now, it'll be open, maybe. So what are folks supposed to do in the meantime when that really expensive village, that's still stuck in permitting, that we said be careful about this site because this site is really wonky and maybe is not the right site and it's really expensive to build. What are we supposed to do for the next 2 years to get people who are living unsheltered under freeways and other places some shelter so they don't die? And to get into services they need to be more stable. We think we need lots of things, including tiny home villages in more communities that are well managed, like the management provisions Councilmember Hitchen embedded in this bill. So look, the last concern, I've heard concerns about the $2.5 million that I think is hanging up this budget bill. Again, we try to address them. We put public notice for the funding. We say you can't use tents. We limit the numbers. We have other management considerations to make sure they're safe and orderly. And so the last concern I heard this evening, maybe there'll be more tomorrow, but the last concern I heard this evening about appropriating funds to get folks living on the street, off the street, is where are we going to find the money to continue supporting them if they need more public money? Well, I really hope my colleagues hear me when I say this. We have heard loud and clear from the technical assistance provided to our Continuum of Care Board, who is shepherding our federal HUD dollars. They have repeatedly told our Select Committee on Homelessness, there's a slew of things you need to do in order to get your HUD appropriation from today of $4 million to upwards of $16 million or more, like Snohomish County gets for these HUD dollars. One of the ways you get to do that is by offering more non-congregate shelter, like tiny home villages. It's a very clear item identified by the technical assistance, by the federal HUD, Housing and Urban Development folks. They very clearly said you need to do more non-congregate shelter because we know it works if you want more of our money. Like Snohomish gets $16 million. We get $4 million. That's one of many ways you can pay for these things. I don't know how we're going to pay for the Good Neighbor Village long into the future either, but I'm willing to try to roll up our sleeves and make the best use of the dollars we have and the various pots of money that we have made available to us, including trying to be responsive to the technical assistance we're told by HUD to up our continuum of care allocation by quadrupling it. So this is an investment in the future. It's an investment to up our HUD allocation. It's an investment to get people off the street now, not years from now, while they wait to get into the housing that we are also funding in this budget that takes years to build. None of the housing we are funding today is going to be available next month or maybe even next year. It takes a long time to build housing, and we got to get people off the street now. So I'm really proud of this summer supplemental budget. It addresses the major concerns. The council is the one that writes the budget, and that's what we're trying to do here. These issues can't wait till winter time. We can't wait to make investments in opioid disorder and affordable housing and homelessness. There's no reason to wait till December, none whatsoever. These are emergencies, and we should act like it, and we should make the investments today. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on ordinance 2024-543S2?
Councilmember Campbell.
Aye.
Councilmember Krueger.
Nay.
Councilmember Denson.
Aye.
Councilmember Herrera.
Nay.
Councilmember Hitchen.
Aye.
Councilmember Morell.
No.
Councilmember Mello.
Aye.
The result of the roll call vote is 4 ayes and 3 nays.
On a vote of 4 ayes and 3 nays, the ordinance is adopted. We're at section 10, Community Forum. Community Forum is an opportunity for members of the public to address the council on any topic that is of significance to or affecting Pierce County government and that did not appear for final action on today's agenda. Again, not for items that appeared on today's council agenda for final action. There is a 3-minute time limit. Please state your name if you would like it on the record and address all your comments to the chair. We'll start those here in council chambers. Mr. Paulson.
Ken Paulson. So this little guy is my great-grandson. He's the son of the 6-year-old I used to bring here 15, 16 years ago. Anyway, and I have him this afternoon. So what I wanted to say was 14 and a half years ago, my daughter was murdered. She was a teacher. It happened at a public school grounds. And a person in the King County criminal justice system said something to me very interesting, and I'm going to put it in my words and interpret it. He was triggered. In other words, something threw him over, and I'm describing it as triggered. I'm using that word specifically because the world is like gone insane. We are using U.S.-built weapons and giving it to Ukraine, and Ukraine is going into Russia with them. And I'm going to throw out Putin will be triggered. I don't know what his trigger is and what level it will be, but it would be like if somebody supplied Mexico with weapons and Mexico attacked Texas and Arizona and California. How long would it be before we're triggered to do something to who's supplying the weapons? A lot of those weapons are from Western Europe, although they were built, some of them, in the United States. We're heading down a path that is going to be, at some point in time, unless it changes, devastating. People will, somewhere in the world, go to bed one night, and when they wake up, they'll either be in forever regret or they'll be in forever joy. You might have to think about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here in council chambers, please come to the podium, state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
Robert Hill, 1427 52nd Street, South Tacoma. For informational purposes only, I'm the founding individual of the Independent Committee to Promote Bus Use in Pierce County. I want to talk about Pierce Transit. I don't know which two of you are on the Board of Commissioners, but it's time for a sales tax increase proposal of 0.1%. It has been 0.6% for at least 30 years, if not more. Now, some of you may know that I was temporarily on the Voters Pamphlet Committee that was going to write the against statement for the plus 3% proposal that was on the February 2012, I think, special election. The reason I was opposing that measure was because this goofball named former mayor, can't remember her name, she put a all or nothing 0.3, 50% increase of the statutory maximum is 0.9 forever. And no one asked Pierce County elections, how much would it cost to do a second ballot measure, or a third, or a fourth, or a fifth? They use the state auditor's bars method. I don't know if it's 1 or 2, but I call it the buy 1, get 100 free ballot measures, because the cost is in the staff to do the first one, to do 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, 5, 6 or 10 small marginal additional cost. Mailing the voters pamphlet, it's in the postage, 90%. to add 50, 100 pages in the pamphlet would have not cost much more. What they should have done is have asked for 3/10 forever, 3/10 for a year, 3/10 for 2 years. So what I'm asking for now is for the two of you on the Board of Commissioners to have 5 proposals, because the auditor still uses the same buy one, get 100 measures free. 0.1% increase for 1 year. Measure B, 2 years. C, 3 years. D, 4 years. E, 5 years. Maybe even a 6th measure, 2% for 1 year. Goes back down for 2. Give the voters a choice. I'm concerned about 2117 killing the support for all the 22 county transit agencies across the state. That's because of Governor Marshmallow Brains not supporting the 2 valid carbon pollution prevention tax measures in 2018, so he could be president. He can endorse I-1641, which was a fee, which was, it lost by 2-1, because he's not the intellectual. He wrote a book, Apollo's Fire, but he don't know really how things work. If it had been a revenue neutral tax proposal, could have cut the sales tax by whatever amount. The revenue neutral means left hand takes in $1 billion, right hand puts it out. 50% of that could have, the state treasurer knows how to do this. Some of that could have been to give a rebate for property tax owners, because you are implementing a new paradigm, carbon pollution tax proposal. What was 1641? Another Democratic Party tax spend measure. Thank you for your time.
I don't see anyone else from the public here in council chambers. Mr. Dominique, anybody in the Zoom room?
For any member in the Zoom room that would like to participate in community forum, please press the raise hand icon in Zoom or *9 on your telephone keypad. And right now we have one hand, Teresa Evans. Please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, I'm Teresa Evans. I live in the District 5. I have been, I'm really happy because I can remember the number because I am still recovering my cognition from being struck a little over 2 years ago. Okay, so 0 2 0. I mean, 0 0. Then I'm going to say it wrong. 0202. No, I'm going to say it wrong. Sorry, my son's sort of trying to talk to me too. But you're not? Okay. 02024-540S. So I find it interesting, and thank you for bringing it to the attention, and putting me on there now, the attention of our county, the people who are elected and the people who live within Pierce County. I actually mentioned it to somebody who lives in unincorporated Pierce County, and the interesting part was she was telling me that she lives in Tacoma, because a lot of people who have Tacoma addresses, it's really unincorporated. So I found that a lot of people may not understand how these things work at all, but they are within the area that may be affected. I talked to a mother and a grandmother whose person works for Tacoma Rescue Mission, so that made me very interested in this ordinance. So no, I do not really want it to be vetoed, so I appreciate that you don't do that, Damir, and thank you for the time for allowing me to speak.
Thank you for being with us.
There are no more hands at this time, Chair.
With no further hands, we're going to close the community forum portion of our meeting. Thank you to everyone who participated and gave feedback. We are at section 11, other business and announcements. Is there any other business or announcements by council members? I don't see any. Ms. Long, is there any other business for council? So just want the public to know that on Monday, September 2nd, the County Council administrative offices and the administrative offices of the county will be closed in celebration of the Labor Day holiday. All normal meetings of the Pierce County Council that ordinarily would be on a Monday, like our study session, they won't be happening. We'll have appropriate meetings on Tuesday instead. So enjoy the Labor Day holiday. We will resume normal business on Tuesday. Councilmember Krueger.
Thank you, Chair. I just remembered Roy Rodeo this weekend, Saturday, Sunday.
Roy Rodeo this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Thank you. Any other business or announcements before we adjourn? With no other business before the Pierce County Council, we are adjourned.